Welcome everyone and welcome to this week's F3 track guide in the fixed setup. We are at Donnington this week in the national layout of the track, so that's the shorter version, and yeah, it's a short one to say the least this week. Lap times are under a minute long. The lap time I specifically set here was a 58.67, and it's a good setup this week, guys. iRacing has redeemed itself. Past few weeks they've been a little bit touch and go, but I think this is going to be a good one this week because the track isn't that long. There's not really, I don't know really where else the open setups are really going to make up that much time. The time that I set here from the benchmark times that they've set online, i.e. PDS and Craig's, I'm basically level playing with them, which is quite rare. Normally I'm a few temps away, but that's the nature of being a short track. There's obviously not as many corners and less for there to go wrong. But yeah, its track temperature was 18 degrees. It's going to be a cool one here this week, so we'll have to be a little bit careful at the start of the race, as we always have to be anyway. But I think it's going to take a couple of laps for our tyres. Well, a couple more laps more than normal to get our tyres up to temperature, but who knows. Once they were up to temperature, it was a great joy to drive this car around here. Normally not a fan of Donnington, but in this car, it really does suit well. As always, I altered the brake bias. I brought it down to 52.4 because, once again, like most sport, very minimal braking pressure that is applied here. I would say the first corner is as hard as you're going to brake and into the blind right-hander. So yeah, not a lot of brake pressure required. Very quick track that's going to make for some interesting racing. But lo and behold, let's head into it. As always, we're going to have the cockpit view, far chase camera angle, and then we're going to talk through that lap, certain areas to keep an eye out for, braking points, etc. You know the drill. So remember to hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and let's head into it. So here we are, guys. Let's have a look how we did that lap time. So down the start finish straight, and we're moving the car over to the left hand side to open up the first corner, which is a right hander. And we're just gonna pause it here and maybe bring it back just a touch, because what we're keeping an eye out for, guys, how we want to align the car is along this line here. So this is the pit exit, obviously the blue cone there indicating the end of the pit exit, and you can just see in a second where the blue part of the track here that indicates obviously the difference between the spacing between the pit lane and the track. As that comes to an end, there's a dotted line here, and this is what we want our car, the middle of our car, to be over, because this is a right-hander, and it's a tricky right-hander. This corner, this is one of a number of places that, well, every corner here, to be honest, you'll probably see accidents, but I would say this and the blind right-hander up the hill are the two of the trickiest corners, or they are the two trickiest corners on this track. You'll see more people go off here and at the blind right-hander than anywhere else, and that's in all series as well, so it's important to get this right. Now, we are along this dotted line here, and we've just gone past the blue line on our left-hand side, and what we're going to do is we're going to brake about halfway up that line. Now, you're making sure you're braking before you get to the end of the dotted line, obviously where the pit lane kind of meets the track, and we're going to shift down into 4th gear as we just play it forward. Start to turn in properly as that white line on the left hand side meets the track, and then shift down into 4th gear. Now this is important, guys. We're utilizing trail braking round here. As I said at the start in the intro, there's very little brake pressure that is required round a lap here at the Donnington National, which is why we've moved the brake bias further back than normal. And what we're doing is we're just trail braking round here to carry the speed, and then as we get closer to the apex, just before it, we're going to shift down into 3rd, because we could shift down into 3rd now, but what we'll do is the engine brake, or the engine will pull up because we'll be too high in the revs, and you'll just lose speed. You won't carry as much speed through the corner as we possibly can. Now, be wary, this is a corner that the track disappears from you very quickly on the left hand side. It's very easy to carry too much speed through here, and that is what I would say 90% of people do. The other 10% turn in too early, but 90% of us, or the people who crash, that is, and go wide here, they go too fast through this corner. So this is getting this, and it's all to do with the downshifts and trail braking. So you can see here, just kind of as the patch here on the inside of the apex comes into view, that's when we're shifting down into 3rd. You can, it's very much a feel corner. It's very rhythmic. There's a rhythm to this that I've found after a couple of practices with the downshifts. Once you've done it a couple of times, you'll know exactly within yourself what you need to do, and you'll time it perfectly every time. I did struggle at first. My downshifts were very out of sync, but this is it's all to do with timing that downshift into 3rd gear. Right, now as you can see here, we're trail braking around here, and what we're aiming for is, as this patch comes into view, we're aiming to get our right wheels on the blue and white curb, hugging the apex, all the while trail braking. As you can see, I'm still not on the throttle here. Normally, if I'm into an apex here, I'm already on the throttle because I want to make sure I nail that exit. But the nature of this corner is, if you feel like you're going too slow, you're probably actually going quicker. It's probably the faster way. Turn your delta times on, turn your delta bars on, that is, and just see how different varying ways of going through this corner affects that red and green delta bar. And as you can see, as we get on the curb, now I'm starting to get on the throttle, but you can see I'm still only on half throttle here. I'm not on full throttle. It's very tempting to get your foot all the way down, but trust me, the track will just disappear from you and you'll just end up on the gravel, and more often than not spin. You can save it, but more often than not you end up spinning and you just lose so much time obviously trying to rejoin the track. As you can see, still on half throttle here because I've got quite a lot of steering knock, and I'm just going to run out of track. You just end up with too much understeer, and then as the track straightens up, if you want a reference point, the green and white barrier here on the left hand side is kind of gone, it's going past you. That's when you can get on full throttle, straighten up the steering and allow the car to drift over to the left. And there you go. And it's very fine margins here, guys. I am on the limit. Any further left, I would have gotten off track. Also, there's a little bit of a dip as well here that will suck the car in. Very much like Laguna Seca with their curbs. If you get on them, it just sticks like glue, and then you can't get off them and rejoin the track until you kind of come to the end of the curb. And by then, you've got two wheels on the grass here where you can spin. You may have to lift off the throttle. You just lose so much time. So going wide here is not an option. It's very, very treacherous. So we want to keep it inside. We want to keep it inside of the grass as always. But yeah, it's not very forgiving out here at all. So there we go. And it's full throttle all the way down here now. Now, that is a very important corner, guys, because it is one of the few overtaking opportunities that you've got. Braking marker is pretty much always the same, but of course, if you are overtaking, on the inside is definitely preferable. I don't really know anyone who's overtaken on the outside there because of the way that the track just falls away from you and it just disappears very quickly. So if you're going for an overtake, make sure that you're on the inside, and yeah, be sure to maybe even drop it down an extra gear. Just you want to make sure that you just don't run wide. So yeah, I don't know anyone who's overtaken around the outside there. Very, very few people do, unless the guy on the inside is extra cautious, which we know in F3 is normally not the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this in full speed now, because very simple, full throttle, covering as little track as possible. We are just going to slow it down here because we are hugging the left hand side of the track here, because we want to open up the very fast right hander, which is the old hairpin. I don't know the former layout of Donnington, but I know that's what they call this, and it's now a very fast right hander. So what we keep an eye out for is this blue and white curb on the left hand side, and we want to be braking as this starts. As the blue and white curb starts, that's our braking marker, and it is literally going to be a dab of the brakes, and we're going to drop it down into fifth and chuck it through. So as you can see, starting to brake. Got two wheels on the blue and white curb. As always, be careful not to go too far over because you will spin. Shifted down into fifth, and we do trail brake a touch, so it's a little bit more than a dab. I'll take it back. We do trail brake a touch because we just want to make sure we get the front end turning in. Very much like the first corner, it's easy to get on the throttle too early here and carry too much speed, and you just run out of track very quickly and end up on the grass. So we want to make sure we get our wheels on the blue and white curb, covering as little track as possible. Try not to get them on the gravel. You can get it on the gravel, but it can unsettle the car. I would say it's 50-50 really. If you lose control of the car, sometimes you pick up a 1X, sometimes you take too much of it and it's a slowdown. So ideally we want to be on the blue and white curb because that's where the grip is, and you can see we just bring it back, we get on the throttle as we get into the apex. So like a normal corner, making sure we power out, make the most of that acceleration, open up the steering and move the car over to the left hand side and use this little bit of runoff. Now you more often than not, people do carry too much speed here. You can keep your foot down on the throttle and save it. So if you do run wide here, in all honesty, my advice would probably be to keep your foot on the throttle, and just try and control the car and just rejoin the track further up. As always though, in a safe manner. We know on iRacing that the grass model is probably not as realistic as it should be. I'd say it's closer to ice than it is grass, even with slick tyres. And if we try and touch the brakes on grass, we know what happens. The car spins. So I would say keep your foot down, maybe lift off slightly, just to make sure you steady out your steering, and then rejoin the track further up, because you can do the way that you enter this corner, or exit it, shall we say. You don't just end up ploughing off into this corner. Now, that fast right-hander there, it is a brave man who decides to send it up the inside there and overtake. If you try and overtake on the outsides, in all honesty, 99% of the time, you're going to end up being pushed out too wide. You're just going to end up losing time. You're best off trying to stick up behind them and draft up to the next corner and overtake them there. I see it all too often. A lot of people crash here. Not as much as the first corner, but a lot of people do crash here because they try and send it up the inside. They try and dive bomb just when it's not on. Especially when they know that people are going to move out to the left and then bring it back into the right. It's the nature of the corner. So just be wary of your mirrors, guys. If someone is up behind you, of them dive bombing, because when you've got to run on someone there down that hill, it is very tempting, but more often than not, it ends up in a crash. So yeah, just be careful there, guys. Now here we are just playing it up because covering as little track as possible. Be careful not to cut that corner too much back there, because you will get an off track. Move it over to the right, and then here we're just going to slow it down, because now we're coming up to the top of the hill, the top of the track, and we're moving the car over to the left hand side to open up the right hander. And what we're keeping an eye out for, guys, is the end of this blue and white curb, because as we get to the end of it, that's when we start to get on the brakes. So we're as far over as we can be, because we've now got, very similar to the first corner, it's kind of a delayed right-hander, I think is the best way to describe it. If you get on the throttle too early, you can spin, and secondly, you can run out of track very quickly. I was quite lucky here. I actually, believe it or not, did not get an off track here. I don't really know how, but I was very, very on the limit. But the principles are still the same, as we're about to show you. So we shift down into fourth gear, and as the apex just comes into view, so you can see the blue and white curb here just up above, and you can also see the marker indicating a right-hander. That's when we want to start turning in, pretty much following the line on the left-hand side, all the while looking at the right-hander. And we're just trail braking. And then I would say I got on the throttle very early here. As I said, very fortunate that I was able to control the car and I didn't get an off track. Still don't know how I didn't. So I would say you want to just delay getting on the throttle here than what I did. But pretty much you want to get on the throttle as this green and white barrier kind of starts to come into the center of your screen. That's a visual point for you, because you are looking around the apex, or to the exit of the apex, and just as that kind of comes to the center, that's when you can then get on the throttle, lift off the brake, straighten up the steering, and we had a little bit of oversteer through here. So you'll see a lot of people crash here, especially at the start with full tank of fuel, cold tires. I haven't said that yet, and the main reason why is because there's for one, lack of grip. You won't be able to get on the throttle as early as this early on in the race, and two, just obviously with the shift of weight with a full tank of fuel, you get oversteer, quite a lot of oversteer through here, and that's what I got here. As you can see, I just had to fight the wheel a little bit, but it was enough to allow the car to drift over a lot. And well, there we go. That is clearly the limit there, guys. I did not get off track here. Still don't know how. Probably because my right wheels are just on the track. We'll go into a chase. Camera angle, not. Well, there we go. That is the track limits, apparently. So yeah, that is how much you can actually go off the track there, and then rejoin. Yeah, very, very lucky. Don't really know how that's the case, but if I was any further left there, guys, you know, I'm gonna spin. I'm gonna lose control of the car. So yeah, be careful of just running too far wide there. As I said, would probably delay my my throttle input a little bit more, because I ran off here, and it's probably I reckon I've definitely lost time here. I would have been quicker if I kept all four wheels on the track, or at least the left wheels on the blue and white curb. But we'll go back into cockpit view, and we now come up to the blind right hander. Now, this is the trickiest corner on the track for obvious reasons. Blind corners always are, because it's all about timing and making use of specific reference points. Now, we want to move the car over to the left-hand side as far as we can. So we're on the blue and white curb here with our left wheels. And what we are specifically keeping an eye out for, guys, is this right here. So there is a little marker that indicates a sharp right-hander, or the corner itself, that comes into view. And that is when you want to brake. That is our braking marker. There is no visual reference on the left-hand side. There is no 50 ball marker, 100 ball marker. We have to use what is at our disposal, and that is this marker on the right-hand side. So, as you can see, as the bottom just kind of comes into view, as it just kind of appears over the crest, that's when we start to brake. And we're just going to drop it down into fourth gear. So it is very much a dab of the brakes. Fourth gear. And then as the sign fully comes into view, that's when we want to turn in. Just as kind of we reach the top of the crest, that's when we turn in. That is what I use as a turning point. There is no other way to say this, guys. The only way that you're going to get this right consistently is practice. It is a very difficult corner to get right every single time. Even in practice here, I did a lot of laps to put this track guide together for you guys. And even then, I went too wide, or I turned in too early. And here, if you cut the corner too much, you will 100% get a slowdown. Very fortunate if you get a 1X. And you can see here, ideally, what we want to be doing is we want the center of our car to be on the inside of the apex here. So we've got which is down now into the fast chicane, but not the one that we're used to, which is over this way. Now, what we're keeping an eye out for, guys, is the marker on the right hand side, but also the crest. Now, as you can see here, this is indicating that the track goes over to the right, but we've got a crest here as we come just over the hill, and as we get kind of just to the bottom of it, that's when I start to brake. Once again, there aren't really any visual braking markers. I am keeping an eye out for this marker on my right hand side in my peripheral vision. But really, it's all about when you get to the bottom of the hill, and you'll feel it. If we play it in full speed, you can physically see the drop, and it's as you go over the crest, that's when you get on the brakes. And once again, we're going to drop it down here into third gear quite quickly, because we want to carry quite a bit of speed for this chicane, and we want to attack this right curb. As you can see, so we're turning in just after the ball on our right goes out of our vision, but you can see how quickly I'm shifting down into third here, and we want to attack this right curb. Now, I will admit I did take too much of this curb than I would have liked, but this just shows how much curb you can take here. The second curb here of the chicane, or second part of the chicane, is a lot more raised, and you cannot really touch it at all. You can skim it, but you cannot take as much curb as this. I went pretty much all the way over here, but the car was still pretty settled. Got over the left-hand curb a little bit more than I would have liked, and then run it down to the start-finish straight. So yeah, be careful through here, guys. Ideally, you want to be skimming the inside of the curb, and then likewise skimming the left hander as well. I did lose time there. In subsequent laps after this, I wasn't able to put a better lap together overall, but I was able to improve in this sector purely because of this corner, because I didn't take as much curb. But this just shows how much curb you can take. You can attack this right curb. You can't attack the second curb. So FYI, guys. And of course, this is going to be the prime overtaking opportunity as well. So of course, you want to be on the inside. If you are, you're going to want to shift down probably into second gear, because you're going to be braking a little bit later. You're going to be taking an acute angle, so you need to take that into account. The only way you're really going to take third gear through here is if you're nice and wide and you can carry the speed and get the nice entry into the corner. But I was almost shocked myself that when I didn't spin, that I actually got through to the finish line there. I really thought, oh no, in that split second, the car was going to go on me, but it didn't. But yeah, there we go, guys. That is a very short lap around Donnington this week, the national setup or layout. Yeah, it's going to make for some interesting racing, a bit like Canadian motorsports, because yeah, the short, fast tracks with a little bit of braking do seem to be conjuring up some interesting racing. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. How have you been getting on recently with the track guides? I know a few of you have been commenting in the videos, but they've been really helping you out, which is great to hear. Keep the good news coming, guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and see you next time. Bye.